Hi there. I'm Nadira Jamal, hostess of the Belly Dance Geek Clubhouse, and welcome to this special interview series with my fellow instructors at the 2014 Las Vegas Belly Dance Intensive. The LVBDI will be held September 4th through 7th at the Flamingo Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. To learn more about the intensive or to register, visit bellydanceintensive.com. My guest today is Mariah, who will be teaching a session on American Cabaret. Mariah celebrates over 20 years of belly dance. She's the owner of Belly Dance by Mariah Studio of Ohio and an international instructor. She is this year's first place winner in Grand Dancer and second runner-up at Belly Dancer of the Year. In the Jewel of the Sierra 2011, she was the first place winner in Diva and Live Music. And Mariah is the cover dancer on Pangea's 2013 New World Music CD, Mystic Blue Caravan. Check her out at Mariah Parason, that's MariaParaSson.com. And thanks for joining me, Mariah.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about the workshop that you'll be teaching at the intensive.
Well, first I would like to say that my birth name is actually Maria, and so my website is MariaParason.com. So it's Maria, a.k.a. Mariah. That's what I use as my stage name. So I know it can be kind of confusing. Sometimes people will say, well, do you pronounce your name Mariah or is it Maria? So that's just one thing I wanted to mention. But I am teaching the classic American Cabaret style at the Las Vegas Intensive. And I chose that style because that's what I learned. That's what I've studied over the years. I'm American. I studied under a teacher in Columbus, a belly dancer from the 60s, and that's what she taught me. You know, she was a cabaret dancer back in the 60s and 70s, and so as a student of her name is Habiba, that's how I learned how to belly dance. So I thought it would be the best choice for me to teach that workshop out in Las Vegas. I did offer to teach several other workshops, but this is what I was, out of the workshops that I submitted, Samira chose this one for me to teach.
Well, I'm glad because the people who are listening to this who know me know that my background is primarily in MCAB or Vintage Oriental. And so I'm really excited about this because it seems like, that went out of fashion for a while. And that's a shame because it's this really, lovely old school, diaspora community style that has a really long lineage and heritage here in the U.S. And it's a lovely dance form. So I'm really glad to see it making a comeback in the last few years. So
exactly.
Can you tell us about how you're going to be approaching that style in your workshop?
Well, I'm going to pretty much break it down, and we're going to break it down into the different parts of the routine. The way I was taught the style is it's broken down into 5 or 6 parts. And those parts would include an introduction, which you could either come out slow or fast, and then you'd go into a medium fast melody or a song. Then you'd go into your chef d'atellie. It may include props such as a veil, a sword, a tray, a snake, or floor work. And then you would go into your drum solo, and then your finale, including the 9/8 rhythm. And so I'm just going to explain to the students how back in the 60s and 70s, you were dancing with live music. I was a child of the 60s and 70s, so I grew up with a Greek-Italian heritage. We always had belly dancers at all of our family festivals and picnics and different, we'd go to the restaurants and there would always be a belly dancer there. So I grew up with the dance. My family's in the restaurant business. So I always aspired to be like those dancers. I just loved the music. I loved, the culture. I understood the music and the food and just the artwork and just everything about it. So I really decided that I wanted to pursue the dance as I became an adult, and just because it was part of my cultural heritage. But as far as the dancers from that generation, they danced to live music. So if you grew up listening to that music, you understood it and you felt comfortable dancing to it. And the shows were always very lengthy. You would always see a dancer when she was performing to a live band. The show went on for a long amount of time. It could have been sometimes as long as a half-hour show, dancing with the band. So that's where you get all the different parts of the routine, and to fit them all in with the music.
Excellent. And we've been lucky enough in Boston, where I live, to actually have these kind of live music venues. And, even as a little baby dancer at the student night, I'd be doing 20-minute sets, which was a lot. I wasn't ready for it at first. But, it makes such a difference versus the hostler scene, where sometimes you get 5 minutes and everybody feels like they have to cram everything into that. So it's just lovely to let the show unfold and to develop the peaks and the dips. So that's something I really appreciate about the longer sets and live music, and this style in particular.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky when you're teaching a workshop and you're wanting to explain all those different parts, because all those different parts nowadays are a workshop in themselves. Like, how do you do an introduction? How do you do just a nice melody, a 4/4 rhythm? That could be a workshop in itself. Or the slow rhythms, dancing with props. That could be a 2-hour workshop in itself. Or the drum solo workshop, or the 9/8 workshop. So I'm going to try to fit all this in within my amount of time for the intensive. I've taught the workshop before, and it works. There's just a way that you demonstrate the different parts, and of course you want to have the music set out for each of the changes. And I like to apply the parts to older music from the 70s, and then I like to tell the dancers how they can then apply what they're learning using the classic traditional cabaret routine, something maybe off of like an Eddie Kochak CD or the Sultans, and then I would apply it to some more modern music and show the dancers how you can still do that 5-part, 6-part routine, but use the more modern songs. So that's always something that I think the students want to be able to use from the workshop. It's like, I don't want to dance to the old classics all the time. I want to dance to new music. Well, you still can.
Gotcha. That sounds really useful, because, unless people are already familiar with the older classics, that may not necessarily be to their tastes. Whereas if you can take all of the structural pieces from the old routine, which are all built in there to create, this interesting ebb and flow of energy, then you can take that and apply it to more modern audiences who are expecting a certain sound. So that sounds really valuable.
Yeah, I agree.
Excellent. So, why do you think it's important for people who are not necessarily in the AMCAB genre to learn about it?
Well, let's think. The AMCAB genre, I think a lot of what the dancers are doing today is just it was influenced by American Cabaret. So they're using the history of the dance, but it's becoming more modern, and it's just evolving. So they need to know, I want them to understand where, in America especially, where the music came from, who the musicians are or were, and where the dancers came from originally, and why they ended up here in America. I might be off track what your question was, but I'm trying to remember what exactly you asked me. What was the point of the question again?
The question was, why do people who are not necessarily performing in this style already need to know about it?
Oh, okay. Well, it's part of American belly dance history. You're here in the States, so you are probably from a culture of, you could be a full-blooded Greek, you could be full-blooded Arabic. Depending on what your cultural heritage is, and you could be just a mix of different cultures. And that's what the American cabaret style defines, is just a mixture of different nationalities and musicians who immigrated from countries from the Middle East, and they are coming together to socialize in American restaurants and nightclubs to celebrate the culture, the food, the music, and the dance. So we all have, our cultural heritage that we want to be able to understand and then express through our dance as American belly dancers.
Mm-hmm. And who would you say that your workshop is most appropriate for?
I think it's appropriate for all different levels of students and definitely all different ages. I would love to see some dancers who were dancing in the 70s take my workshop and be reminded about the era, and the younger baby dancers who aren't familiar with the American cabaret style. So I think it's really for all levels. As far as your experience, you do need to have a little bit of foundation in belly dance to sort of understand the different parts, because there's so many different rhythms that we're going to be going over, and then the usage of different props. But it's nothing that you can't get an understanding of. So you can have very little experience to take this workshop. And then I would love to see some of the more seasoned dancers in there.
Excellent. And can you share one tip with our listeners from your session that they can start using right now?
A tip in preparing for the workshop?
Or maybe, give us a little highlight from the workshop, like a sneak peek.
Let's see, a sneak peek. Floor work. I really want the dancers to bring their accessories, their zills and a veil and some knee pads, because those three parts are really important when you would be defining this traditional American cabaret style. For a 25, 30-minute dance, you're not going to be standing the whole time. You're not going to just be yourself without any kind of props. So I want to explain what we did with the veil, how we came out, how we were wrapped, different ways of covering the costuming and introducing ourselves using the veil, how we played the cymbals keeping the cymbals on while you're wearing and using a veil. That's always really tricky. And then, how do you get rid of the veil? Where do you put the veil? When the music starts to pick up and you get into the medium to fast melody or the song, which is usually the thickest section of the routine, how do you work the crowd? You want to entertain a big group in a restaurant setting or a nightclub setting. And that's where you would have seen this type of cabaret style performed. And when the rhythms start to slow down and you get down onto the floor, working with the floor work and using maybe different props while you're on the floor. Perhaps you want to use a tray or a sword, and how to use the floor work and how to protect yourself from getting hurt while doing floor work. So we're going to go into that. And then the zills, of course. That's going to be a big part of defining that this style is the usage of the finger cymbals and how important they are in this being able to play the cymbals along with the musicians and how that was done successfully. So we're going to talk a bit about finger cymbals, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the different the way you end this exciting routine with a dramatic finale, which would include that crazy 9/8 rhythm that so many people are intimidated by, and I can really explain that and get everybody excited about the finale and what they can maybe do with their finales using a different rhythm, something that's not that you don't hear as often anymore. And then where the maybe putting in a little bit of folkloric in with the different sections. And so there's a lot to cover. But we'll try.
Excellent. And if you don't mind me making a plug for my own section, I'm actually doing an entire session on 9/8, so people can come to yours, get it excited about doing a 9/8, and then come to mine and get some more material to plug in to the structure that you've created. So I think that's going to complement itself really nicely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what are you the most excited about for this year's intensive?
Well, let's think. I'm excited, just excited that I was chosen to do it. I mean, this was a international application. We had to apply for the intensive. We were chosen amongst so many different dancers. There's going to be so many of us out there, and I'm really excited just to see some of my friends. I mean, I've made so many friends in dance over the years. This is just going to be sort of like a dance family reunion. So that's really what I'm most excited about, is just seeing just some of my friends that I've competed with, a lot of my friends that I've judged competitions with, different events where I've traveled to and made friends in the dance. So it's just the community of girls and men. I love just being around these people. I just feel like it's a family, and we all support each other, and I love the community aspect of going to the intensive.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for joining me, Mariah.
Well, thank you for calling. It was a fun interview.
My pleasure, and thank you everybody for listening. If you'd like to learn more from Mariah, you can check her out at mariaparasson.com. Again, that's MariaParasson.com. Or better yet, join us at the Las Vegas Belly Dance Intensive. You can register at bellydanceintensive.com. And for more interviews with our fabulous instructors, go to bellydancegeek.com/Las Vegas.